When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers! Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port and if number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I certainly hope on this wonderful Friday afternoon that you guys are not sitting there freezing your ass off as much as I am right now. I'm not going to lie about it. It's really kind of cold out here in the state of Wisconsin, so I could not be happier that I'm not only interviewing one, but 2 powerhouse females today. Second of all, I'm in my kitchen making homemade soup. Why? Just because I can and I'm on the radio. And third of all, I get an opportunity to start to enjoy my weekend after I get unburied from multiple writing projects and revising my script. So I just want to get to 2 really super fast notes referencing the show, and then we'll get on to today's business. First of all, I want to remind anybody and everybody, if by some chance you know anyone who is musically inclined, I'm still accepting 2 more submissions for music for my movie. I'm also accepting 2 more actors in New York City and 2 more actors in Wisconsin as it relates to my film, Love's Two-Way Mirror. Obviously, it's on Facebook. I don't have time yet to put a website together, so if you go to Facebook and look up Love, @S, Love's Two-Way Mirror, you'll find me there. You can leave me a message there. Otherwise, feel free to reach out via email, which is sin4251@gmail.com. This way I can reach any and all that way. That's most expeditiously. Second of all, I want to remind everybody, if you haven't bought my son's comic book, you're not cool. But no, more importantly, you should go buy my son's comic book. It is Sergeant Seizure and the Evil Dr. Cuckoo, again on Facebook. There's a website there as well. Last note real quickly before we start. Obviously, Art is Alive, the magic of indie movies. My calendar is actually going to be finalized, and we're going to start selling it next week in time for the holidays. That is a combination of all of my finalists and winners of my film festival. So please do your best to support live and independent film. And before I forget, I'm going to announce tomorrow's show. There's going to be a show, but as of 5 minutes ago, I was approached by a publicist who handles apparently a finalist for the new Usher game show or music show, or I'm not going to lie, I don't even know what it is. But either she will be on tomorrow morning, and if not, Chris Shelton, a former 30-year Scientologist who was in the Sea Org, will be on. So please join us tomorrow no matter what you're doing at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, and I look forward to talking to you guys then. But instead, I'm going to stop doing the talking and bring on our fabulous doctor so we can speak with her. Hi there, dear. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm nervous, Meenal. I'm very nervous. First of all, I don't know how to say your name, so I'm hoping, is it Meenal? I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
It's Meenal.
Meenal, just like that. Okay, got it. Meenal, almost like mean but not mean, because you're not mean at all. In fact, you're beautiful. I just saw your picture recently. I was going to say, I saw your picture, and you look lovely. You're like so little and cute, and you've got this long dark hair, and I'm like, oh, my God, who wouldn't want to go see this person for therapy of any kind? I'm like, I'm totally down with you. It's awesome.
Well, thank you very much for the compliment.
Well, you're quite welcome. I have a lot to talk to you about because I creeped on you and I found out all sorts of information. So I think there's a lot that you could tell my listening audience today in terms of treatment, because I won't lie to you. First of all, I want to ask you the most basic question. When people talk, like for instance, when Ethel said to me, oh, you're going to talk to someone about pelvic wellness, the first thing I was thinking of, I'm not going to lie, folks, is gynecological parts. But pelvic is not isolated to that. So we want to talk about that first and foremost. Is there a stigma when you have your patients first come in that they assume that you cannot treat certain things that you can actually treat?
Absolutely. Totally. Because people come here with a complete disbelief. So usually I get referrals from a urologist office or an OBGYN office. They kind of start the topic that, okay, you might benefit from a pelvic floor physical therapist. And the patients are like, pelvic floor physical therapist? I haven't heard of this. And what's that going to do, you know? So they come here with a total disbelief. Of course, I do treat men, women, and children. So specifically, our male clientele is little, what are you going to treat? Do I have to undress? So yes, of course, there is definitely a big stigma about this. So mainly I see male patients with pelvic pain or, perineal area or pelvic area numbness and all, in that area. So it's a big stigma for sure. And I do get many questions. How did you get into this?
Well, I imagine so, actually. And we're going to get into that because I know that you had graduated from a university in India with your degree in PT. So I want to ask this because obviously to us in the United States, India is like a whole other world, obviously. So when you're taught in India, do they teach you customs and ways to treat people in both cultures? Because I imagine, is pelvic care very different in that country versus how we do things here?
So actually, I didn't do pelvic health at all. It's practically non-existent in India. So my basic degree, my physical therapy degree, is in general physical therapy. And when I came to United States, and that's when I started doing my education in pelvic health. So I wasn't even, introduced to that aspect of pelvic health in India.
Gotcha. Well, and the second part is, I'm just curious to ask, what made you venture into this particular field as compared to studying something different or out of the ordinary? Because this is unusual to begin with. But, I mean, why pelvic? You know what I mean? You don't wake up in the morning and you're like, yes, I totally want to. Well, maybe you did. But did you wake up and be like, this is the course of action I want to take? Or how did you end up merging in this area?
Well, this is the most common question I have been asked in the last 10 years. So the answer to this is I started my journey with pregnant women and postpartum women where you don't have to do this kind of internal work or anything. So, but then I gradually realized that, there's a big component of pelvic health and I'm almost not aware of it. And out of curiosity, I started learning this. And then I was like, oh my God, this is fascinating. I went to medical colleges, dissected pelvises, and, kind of understood what is there inside. And then there was no end to it. Then I got my education. I've gotten, tons of certifications in this. And, it's just amazing. More complex it gets me more excited. So that's what I think continues.
Isn't she cute? She's like totally excited about something that just sounds so, it's like saying I'm excited to be a dentist or a gynecologist. But I mean, if you love it, you know what I mean? I mean, it all comes down to personal passion, I think, because I'm like, if you totally love this, it doesn't really matter what occupation you're in, but I find it interesting that you did this. Okay, next question we have here is, I found out that you speak a language called, is it called Marathi? Is that how you pronounce that? I was so intrigued. I'm like, what does that even mean? What is that? Can you teach me? Because it's so highly unusual. I found that you had a Facebook profile, and I happened to look in there, and it said that you speak this particular language. So I'm like, I'm going to ask her about this. Am I wrong? I mean, I could be wrong.
It's Marathi.
There you go.
It's a dialect. It's a specific dialect in India. So, and that's what I speak at home. So, yeah.
Okay. I gotcha. Now, is that something that you utilize often? Meaning, I'm just curious to ask in terms of percentages of clients. Do you get a lot of Indian clients that come in, or do you find it's kind of across the board as far as your demographic?
Across the board. All kinds of clients I get. Yep.
That's interesting because I know what I found fascinating was that you treat, and I know you said this before, that you treat everybody, including children. So let's talk about that a little bit. Kids, in general, I would suspect would be the least likely to have pelvic issues. Now, would that be incorrect?
Rare, but yes, a lot of kids do have pelvic issues, and the main diagnosis I see is incontinence and bedwetting. So, yes, so these are the two things I see, and bedwetting is actually a little bit common in 6 or 7 year olds or even 8 year olds I see, and usually the answer is pelvic floor. So, yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. Now, as a parent, because I of course have 4 children, so my younger children, I'm thinking, okay, they're 11 and almost 13. So they're a little bit older. But my question to you is, if there are parents listening out there, and let's say, for instance, are there warning signs, signals, sometimes things that we should be looking for as parents that might signal there could be some form of an issue that needs to be looked at? It's like someone by yourself?
Difficult, because usually that age kids will not tell this to their parents if there is something happening down there. You know what I mean? So
okay.
Let's say, So if they are, masturbating or something and they're having any issue, they will not go to their parents and tell them that, I'm having this issue, So it's very difficult. If someone catches it, wow, that's great.
Oh, sure. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because I guess I never even thought about that. But I'm like, okay, obviously we as parents want to always be paying attention to something before it becomes a real issue, obviously. So I guess that's why I asked that question. Now, you yourself, obviously, I know, are a parent, because I've been seeing your little girl, your little Annika in kindergarten, and I've seen this picture, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to tell you guys, folks, she's one of the more proud mothers I've seen, because I was like, oh my God, every time I turn around, she's got another picture that she's posting up of her child, which is so sweet. So as a mom, obviously, because you're a working mom, even though you are a PT person, you still have a family, et cetera, you still have all that stuff. How do you juggle that in terms of that? And does she, because she's so little, does she kind of understand what you do, or is she just like, Mommy just fixes people, or how does that dynamic play out?
So she does understand that I fix people, and she doesn't understand what I do, so obviously, but I work around her schedule. I mean, she's in kindergarten, so she's in full-time school, so sure. I kind of have that, and I have a big support from my husband, because we kind of, he takes care of her in the morning. I come here early in the morning, and I care of her in the evening, and he kind of comes in a little bit late. So that's how we juggle around. I mean, without my husband, impossible.
That's so sweet. Oh my God, listen to you. She's like, I totally couldn't do any of this. Now, is he part of your practice as well, or is he completely separate from that and does this whole different thing?
So he manages all my IT technical support. So basically, he's the one who's created the website. He's the one who is, who's responsible for all other. My practice is paperless practice. So 99% I do not use any papers in my practice. So he is a big reason, because getting on to different things, signing me off with online paperwork, online intake forms, and that's what I think lot goes to him. So he's responsible for that. So he's kind of involved.
Okay, I got you. But it's not like you two are in the office together, because I often talk to people and their spouses are with them like 24/7, and I'm like, oh, good God, I give you lots of credit, because I don't think I could deal with that. That's a little much, No, well, you know what I'm saying?
He's kind of I understand. I understand. It's difficult.
Got it. Now, my question is, as your daughter, obviously, as she grows up, et cetera, do you think this is something where she's going to follow in your footsteps a little bit and such? Does she ever come to the office? Does she get an opportunity to kind of see some of the things you do? Because I know it's obviously complex for a small child.
Absolutely. So she wants to get involved, and she does come to my office sometimes. And whenever she doesn't have school or gets off early, then she's sitting in the back office with my assistant, and she's very curious. What am I doing? Why the door is closed? And why can't I see what you're doing? So, and I do have to keep her away from
Oh, I'm sure, obviously, because she's small. Certainly, I understand. Now, if I got this correctly, you started your business in 2016, so now it's almost 2018. So I was curious to ask you, what made you want to open up your practice? Meaning, did you start off with a typical philosophy of, okay, I see this in the industry and I want to do this? What were some of your main goals when you decided to open up your own practice?
So this was always my dream, to have my own practice. And the kind of education I have done, and I used to work with a hospital earlier. And so basically, the very fact that hospitals or any other private practices, they would not let you work with the patient or work with the patient for an hour. So spending more time with the patient is what I felt is a priority, and the kind of training I've had that I want to kind of think through that, oh, okay, this might help or this might not help. The hospitals and clinics, they're like probably 40-minute treatments, that was the major reason. I'm like, no, I just need to go on my own and work on my own terms rather than, I'm sorry, we can just see you for 40 minutes. And the complexity of patients I see here, it's a lot. I mean, they are very complex patients. I've seen patients with sexual trauma and abuse, and it's the complexity is really high. So I think spending time with the patient was very important. So I think I would say that would be the major reason why I wanted to go on my own.
Gotcha. And you brought up a really valid point. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about because you're an expert in the area. Sadly, we're living in a society right now that has been such an accumulated amount of sexual assault, sexual harassment claims, et cetera, that sort of good stuff. I guess what I'm wondering is, are there certain specific things, like you were saying, you treated patients that have had sexual issues. Are there particular hesitancies? Do you notice when people come in to talk about it, to even see someone about it? Do you feel like this is somewhat of a closet issue, meaning that people are just afraid to come forth and see someone like yourself to get treated? Because I imagine that that's very difficult for a person to come in and speak to you. I mean, I'm sure you're lovely, but do you know what I mean? That whole situation is complex.
So a complex patient, let's say I'm seeing a patient in front of me, usually the patient is referred to me or patient finds me for some other kind of issue. Let's say usually with sexual trauma and abuse or something, there are other issues happening too, like they might have increased bladder pain or urgency or maybe constipation or something which is bothering them. And then when we go through this hour and a half sometimes long evaluation, I'm asking them all these questions, and then this factor comes in. I was abused as a child, or I had this sexual trauma. I was with this boyfriend, and he did something to me, and it comes up, and that's definitely there. It's there. That it definitely creates that psychological trauma as well. And, a lot of it is in that area. So, I mean, for example, I had a patient, she had urethral spasms. And every time she would pee, her urethra would spasm and, she's not able to pee. So she gets here, frantic, referred from a doctor again. And I'm like, what's going on? And we went through entire history, and she was abused, actually. And she had a big scar on her urethra, which we worked on, and actually the urethral spasm stopped. So the reason was the sexual trauma. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
So that's what I would get. Yeah.
I gotcha. I see what you're saying. Okay. So a lot of the things that we're going to get into and talking about, I'm not going to lie, they're all Greek to me because some of these words, some of these things you do, I'm like, I totally don't understand this. So one of the reasons for wanting to host you on the show was I'm sure I'm not the only person that walks into your office because oftentimes we feel disconnected, at least for me. When I see a doctor and he's mumbling all this English that sounds like English, but it's French to me, I'm like, what are you saying? You know what I mean? So I think it's easier if we go through some of this so people understand what you do and how you do it, et cetera. Make sense? Definitely.
Yeah,
First of all, I want to ask, I think this is totally cool. I love your hashtags because I was on the Facebook page, and folks, you should see this. She's got like Mindful Monday, Wellness Wednesday. I think that's so neat that you offer different tips and suggestions and things like that. When you find, we talk about the area of pelvic health care, if there is such a thing, meaning can we maintain good pelvic health? Do you know what I'm saying? Because we talk about diet, we talk about exercise. Can we take care of ourselves in that area before we get to you?
Yes, we can. So mainly what I see here in my practice is patients having a lot of tightness in their pelvic area. So usually that that kind of leads to their issues, their bladder issues or bowel issues or pelvic pain issues. So stretching the area, stretching, hip stretches are very essential. Also, understanding what you could do to strengthen or stabilize your abdominals is also very, very essential. So, so all these exercises, it's like, if you do them on a regular basis, you would possibly not have any issues. You know what I mean? So
I do.
This is what you can actually maintain the results. I mean, I'm sure a lot of moms who have given birth, and if they do these kind of exercises or certain pelvic floor strengthening exercises, they would not need me later on.
I see what you're talking about. I got it. Yeah, because, of course, obviously most of us have had kids, and some of the stuff you take for granted, like the Kegel exercise, or I've done Kegel exercises before, and those are things you can do without, taking a significant amount of time and trouble to it, which is kind of nice. I know
exactly.
You use you have two special tools, as I call them. For one, the special treatment table, and you speak about a biofeedback system. So, again, we're going to start with I'm completely ignorant, and I have no idea what the heck that means. So a biofeedback system and the particular treatment table that you use, tell us a bit about how that helps you to implement proper procedure with your patients.
So the table is just a normal table, but then it is kind of a thinner in the middle so that I can reach to the pelvic area, the areas I'm trying to reach. It's better for the patient and better for me. I can reach to certain areas better than if I'm using a normal table, and that's what it is. And a biofeedback is actually software what I use to actually what we do is we attach small little electrodes in that perineal area, and the electrodes are attached to a machine. And if the patient if I tell them, okay, do your Kegel or squeeze your muscles and relax, so it will show up on the screen how their muscle is working. Basically, there will be a graph or something, this much you can go up, but the normal is this much. So let's try to go there. Or are you relaxing completely? So the graph will down. That's what the biofeedback does.
Gotcha. You've spoken about doing a technique called visceral manipulation. Again, see what I'm talking about the Greek word? I don't even know. I understand manipulation. But what exactly is that, and how often do you utilize something like that?
So I do treat a lot of patients with endometriosis, and patients have had several surgeries. On an average of 5 to 6 surgeries on their abdomen over the period of time. And they tend to develop this increased scar tissue formation or adhesions inside their abdomen, which can cause a lot of pain and this weird abdominal pain, which nobody can figure out that why am I getting so much of pain, like sharp pains. It's like I'm just sitting like that or standing in grocery lines, and the patient falls with a very sharp pain in her abdomen. So usually this kind of pain is due to adhesions or some kind of the visceral area is the organ area inside. So basically manipulating that, reaching there, and it's a complete technique. So I specialize in that, and I work with those patients to actually get more mobility in the visceral muscles, inside muscles, outside as well, but as well as inside muscles too.
Oh, sure. Now, we want to talk a bit about some of the conditions that you've treated, because I know there's a different one. Obviously, you've touched on incontinence. That goes without saying. And, of course, the bowel area and the prostate area are kind of a given, clearly, including the vulvar. But when we talk about places like musculoskeletal and myofascial, go into depth a little bit about that, because on the base I can imagine what that is. But more specifically, what sorts of things are you treating when you're looking at those two areas?
So the musculoskeletal is lower back pain or something to do with the skeleton. So either their pelvic pain, or sometimes women come to me with a complete separation of the pelvis after giving birth. So I do treat that. So that will come under musculoskeletal. So low back pain normally, like postpartum, after the baby, low back pain. I do treat that on a regular basis. Even some kind of a pelvic pain would be generated by their joints and muscles, which are in the back or something like that. So not particularly to the pelvic area, but yes, it's kind of lower back area. Myofascial relief myofascia is the fascia, which is kind of inside or just above your muscles. So basically that tends to get tighter due to some reason, and it's just a technique I use to actually loosen up things. So so that's what I would say.
I gotcha. Okay. Now, zipping back to what I was referring to earlier in terms of, I know that there is some prep work that can be done in certain situations. Like, for instance, I was reading that apparently both nutrition and pre-surgery, you can do things relative to your pelvic region that are helpful to you once you're having that done. Like, for instance, before you have pelvic surgery, or certain foods or catering your nutritional diet around your needs in terms of that. Can you talk a bit about that in terms of what we can do in those areas relative to that subject?
So the nutrition, of course, depends on the condition I'm seeing in front of me. So let's say there is a condition for bladder, it's called interstitial cystitis. So basically there is this inflammation of the bladder, basically. So what can you do to reduce that inflammation? So it's usually this bladder condition, this particular bladder condition is related to foods you eat. So if you happen to drink 4 cups of coffee in a day, and that bladder would get irritated and you would start getting the symptoms. So, reduce that. So don't have 4 cups of coffee or have a cold brew or something like that. So I do treat that on a regular basis, and, particularly, so how to reduce inflammation. So don't have foods which are causing more gas if you have abdominal pain. So like broccoli, cabbage. So you take out those foods from your diet, and it will be much better. So nutritional that's how much what we do on a regular basis. So
I gotcha. Now, just out of curiosity, oftentimes people talk about particular conditions being affected by alternate sources, or I should say addictive sources in this particular case. And I know it might sound a little weird to you, but somebody was saying this the other day. I said I was interviewing you, and they were like, I wonder if chemical substances, meaning drugs, alcohol, things along those lines, does that have anything to do with your area of expertise? Because off the top of my head, I'm thinking that probably doesn't affect it, but it is the body, right? So I guess I should ask you that. If you are excessive in your use of either drugs or alcohol, will that have an effect on any of these regions you're referring to?
Yes, that will definitely affect. So alcohol, increased alcohol, yes, can increase bladder irritation. And then you would have urgency, frequency, incontinence, maybe not able to reach to the bathroom, going to the bathroom several times. So basically the symptoms would actually get worsened. Also, drug interactions. For a lot of our older patients, Medicare patients, I do treat Medicare patients, and they're taking 16 to 18 different medications on a regular basis. Sure. And I wonder, they're going to have some drug interaction. So these drugs are going to affect each other, right? So and they could have some effect out of it. You know what I mean? So definitely a lot of effect in that area.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because it just seemed weird to me, because I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, this is not like your heart or your lungs or things. It's a much different region, obviously. Just out of curiosity, the demographic, would you say you treat, I know you're all over the map, but is there a particular age where you tend to notice that people have more issues in the pelvic area?
Not really. I treat as young as 11, 12-year-olds or even less than that, and my oldest patient is 95. So.
Oh my gosh, look at that! Holy man, that's great. He's still living at 95. That's awesome. Yeah, that's most of us. I think we deduce that. Well, and as you age too, it's almost like a given. Everything starts to fall apart. I'm not going to lie. I feel like I'm getting shorter. Everything is shrinking. It's getting down closer to the ground, which is kind of funny. Now, you did mention this earlier because your husband plays an integral part of this. The self-appointment and booking, obviously your intake forms are electronic, and this must be something that's more new age because I'm noticing that more offices are integrating to the electronic version instead of our easy days where we used to walk in, schedule our appointments, etc. Is there a reason why electronic is the way to go? I'm assuming besides just the fact that it's faster, does it really expedite things in terms of the process of care?
Yes, it does, because when I used to work with clinics earlier and hospitals, so basically it's a main complaint I would hear from the patients that they get in here and they're given this stacks of papers. Okay, go ahead and fill this out. It would probably take them 45 minutes to fill out all the paperwork. And, before the appointment. And some of our Medicare patients as well, I mean, it's like so many forms they have to sign. And, it's just, I feel doing it online at home and which gets submitted into my system automatically. That's something saves a lot of time, yes, but it's a convenience for the patient too, that they can do it anytime, rather than just getting here 45 minutes early. So, it's a convenience, and it's kind of people are really happy with the service. It's that, like, oh my God, thank God it's online. So it's so much better for them. So yeah, so that's what I would say. Oh, sure. And in terms of paperwork, I have two alternate questions to that, meaning oftentimes when we see a physician, would you recommend that if people are going to come and see you that any pertinent medical records get forwarded to you ahead of time, or is that part of the electronic process? Or should they be bringing records into the past? Is there any relevant information you need them to bring with you for an appointment? So, it's everything is there in my intake forms. I actually ask them questions that, do you have any medical issues I should be aware of? And if I feel after seeing the patient that, this condition is actually directly affecting her pelvic health, then yes, so I would ask for the papers. Like, for example, if I see a patient with some kind of a condition with their hormones, and they have done the hormonal panel and they've seen it, and I would like to have those results. So that is directly affecting their pelvic area issue. So that's what it would say. Sure. No, I understand exactly what you mean. And the other thing being, of course, is oftentimes some people have private insurance providers, some people have Medicare, some people have Medicaid. Do you find that the area that you treat is normally a covered expense, or should be people expecting to walk in and wondering about in terms of coverage? Because I know that's a big thing. Oftentimes people worry about how much out-of-pocket expense is there. Do you find that oftentimes this is more of a covered expense for folks? Yes, it is covered expense. It is completely covered by insurance, and I myself accept all the insurances except Aetna, which I'm out of network with, but I accept all kinds of insurances, and I mean, usually I don't have any issues with that. Oh, sure, of course, I gotcha. Now, just so you folks know, the lady that you're talking to, the various certifications she holds, and I have a question about this. You do manual therapy, obviously pelvic rehab practitioner. The two things I'm curious about is a health life coach and lymphedema, I should say. Those two areas I'm less familiar with, because I've heard the term used before, a health life coach. So could you explain to us in what capacity you work as far as that? What exactly does a health life coach enable us to do? So a life coach, like Women's Health Life Coach certification, I got through Integrative Women's Health Institute with Jessica Drummond. Basically, working with patients in actually how to. So the main reason what my patients do not do exercises is they don't find time. Everyone is busy, right? So if I give them, okay, these are the 5 exercises you have to do, and they're like, I don't have time. I am very busy. So working with them, like organizing their day so that they are able to do certain things at, okay, so let's say I'm seeing a patient with constipation and she doesn't have breakfast every day. So what can we do to make you have breakfast? So, something like that. So working on these terms, like working with the patient as a whole, that's what the life coach training is. So basically working with them, learning and basically understanding what things you know already, but just accentuating the learning of those things that, you have to incorporate in your life, that this is important. And lymphedema is related to cancer patients. So basically, I do treat, post-breast cancer patients with arm swelling or, prostatectomy patients having, they have taken some kind of a radiation or they have this lymphedema. Lymphedema is the swelling in the legs. And I do work with that. I do have a certification for that.
Gotcha. Okay, I see what you mean. Now, we all want to know clearly because most of us have either known, met, or some even work in the PT field. I'm going to gather that you have ongoing education where you have to renew credentials and such. Is that a norm for you every year, or how often does that occur?
Absolutely. So I have done lots of training. I would say more than 500 hours of continuing education till now. And I do go on different conferences and continuing education courses. So not only to get the credits required, but it's just to keep myself updated. So yes, I do that probably 2 or 3 times in a year.
Got it. Now, I have to say that I'm quite proud of you because I'm here to tell you the fact that you get up and you actually open at 7 a.m. is like you need a trophy for this. I don't even talk to people at 7 a.m., let alone Monday through Saturday. She's like, yes, I'm open at 7. And I'm like, do people really get up and say, yes, I want to go have pelvic care at 7 a.m.? That really happens? Really?
The 7 a.m.s are very popular appointments.
Oh, my God. Well, I suppose if you have to have something done, it makes perfect sense, obviously. Now, I see that you're open Monday through Saturday, of course, and then you do have short days on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. So I like the fact that you're at least off on one day on Sunday. Now, I've also heard from practitioners that, like, let's say, for instance, somebody's listening today. Now, do you do health expos? Do you do special seminars? If people want to come and meet you outside of the office, is that a possibility?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm totally open to that.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. And then I have another question for you. Mental health is another big trigger that's out there in terms of, in one practice or another, it would seem that there are tons of people out there that there's a bona fide link between mental health and being able to help them physically and mentally. In the pelvic practice, is that possible, or does one relate to another, or are they completely two separate entities? I'm just curious about that.
In most cases, yes, it is associated. And I do work with a lot of professionals with this, and I work with sex therapists, and I work with counselors. And yes, it is. In some cases, you have to find the right candidate, though. Not all of them, but yeah. So there is definitely is there. It's kind of the mind is related to pelvis. There's a connection.
Listen to this. She's so cute. She's short and she's cute and she's smart and she knows her stuff. And she's like, bam, bam, bam. I know absolutely everything there is to know here. This is awesome. Before I forget to ask this, very, very important question, because I know you're located in California. So I've been asking people coming on the show, are you affected by what's been going on? Are you guys okay? Can we do something? Because obviously I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm not local. But what is the situation like there now?
So it's in Southern California. I'm in Northern California. We are not affected by it, but some of my friends actually. As you know, I'm very much into horseback riding and horses, and so a lot of the equestrian properties and the horse barns are affected with this. So a lot of my friends are actually going as a rescue to rescue them. And one of my friends actually, we kind of worked out with a trailer, and they're taking the horse trailer, well, 4-horse trailer, it's a big one. So they will be we just gave it to them, and this morning. So I'm very proud that at least I'm being a little helpful. And of course, I will be, if needed, I can board some horses or provide food or something. So, but we are not directly affected.
Thank God for that one, at least. Yeah, it's pretty horrific seeing those pictures and watching all that. It's just heart wrenching. It so is. It's so terrible and heart wrenching, and it makes me very, very sad. The other thing that I want to ask you about before we go through all the different ways where folks can get in to see you, et cetera, is a lot of people talk about physical exercise, meaning going to the gym, et cetera. I won't lie to you. I get told 17 times a week to go to the gym. I say no every week, and I'm holding on by a thread here. I'm like, I don't want to go. I hate the gym. However, my guess is that physical exercise is integral to pelvic care, if I'm not mistaken. So if somebody like me is like, seriously, I don't want to do the gym, et cetera, is there anything that I can do at home from a workout sort of way or in that realm that'll be beneficial to me without actually having to go to a gym?
Absolutely. So there are many, many mat exercises, simple exercises. I'm not very, very big on exercises. The exercises I give to the patients, they are very much, you can lay down and do it at home.
Okay.
You don't have to go to the gym. So, yeah, absolutely. So it just has to be more effective rather than quantity. So basically the quality exercise is more important than quantity. So, yeah, so you don't have to go to the gym.
Oh, thank God for that one. They've already taken my diet and changed it around. It's funny how when people have health issues, and I just had this recent health issue, it's like everything changes. Your diet, exercise, how you do things, how you look at stuff. It's like, oh, my God. I'm not even 50 years old, and I just feel like I'm an old grandma already. It's very sad. Thanks. But I'm glad to hear there's hope, so I don't have to go to the gym quite yet. That's awesome. Now, I'm going to read off a bunch of different places I found you, and once I get finished, if you just want to let me know if I've missed anything, that would be great. Just so you folks know, the actual website itself is Acmee, and it's Acmee with 2 E's, A-C-M-E-E, acmeepelvicwellness.com. On Facebook, she has the same, Acmee Pelvic Wellness, and her name itself is spelled M-E-E-N-A-L, and then M-U-J-U-M-D-A-R, in case you want to find her personal page. She is also on LinkedIn and YouTube, and she also has an Instagram profile. I didn't see a Twitter profile, so I'm guessing you're not on Twitter at the present time?
Not yet.
Okay, got it. You're still working on it. It's a work in progress. Wonderful. So just before I forget to ask the obvious, if somebody's listening in today and they want to get something scheduled with you, are you getting booked up because of the holidays, et cetera? Is there a good recommendation for folks in terms of timing of appointments?
So, yes, I am getting booked up, but there are always some, so basically there are some time slots left in my schedule just for emergencies. If anyone needs I'm having horrific pain, I need to see you right away, they will be able to see me right away because there are some appointments there for emergency. So getting in on my schedule is not a problem.
Oh, nice. That's good to hear because usually you call a doctor and it's like, 17 weeks before you can get in, et cetera. So that's kind of cool. And on the PT side of things, it's even more vital because I think you, in ways, you provide services and hope to some people that really feel like there is no hope with certain things. And I do believe sometimes your side of the fence can do more than surgery or some of those other things. But it's very cool to see that you're doing what you're doing. Even more cool that you're a female doing it because there's not a whole lot of females that are out there in that field. So I commend you in terms of being so highly educated and completely eclectic in your practices in terms of what you do. I don't want to forget to mention because everybody that comes on my show gets a surprise or two. So I am launching a magazine next year, and I'm interested if you'd like to stay in touch at some point. We could have you contribute something if you'd like to do a written write-up, or we could work on something, put something together because I think pelvic health care is something that kind of gets pushed to the wayside, so to speak. It's not as prominent, let's say, for instance, to brain, head, heart, things along those lines. So if you'd be willing to contribute something on that aspect, I'd love to be able to showcase your talent in that regard. I would be
delighted to do that.
Yay! Oh, my God. I love it when people say yes. I get so excited when they come on my show and I say yes. I'm just doing a happy dance in my kitchen. Second of all, the reason I asked you about the mental health thing is I am going to be shooting a documentary next year on bipolar health, as a matter of fact. And, in fact, the whole subject. I'm a 30-year patient myself, and I'm always looking for out-of-the-norm, unusual, different, not well-known practices and people that work with people like myself, awareness, building on that stuff. So if you don't mind being on film and we can work something else in the pelvic region, I'd love to invite you to do that too. I'm all big on promoting and networking together. So I'd love it. And then this way then you get to meet me in person, and then definitely if you have an event that comes up, if something goes on, if you just want to come back to the show, I'd be more than happy to have you anytime.
Absolutely. I would be delighted to do it. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Oh, of course, my goodness. And just as a heads up to let you know, about 2 hours or so after the show is done live, because we're live now, it'll be archived, in which case then we'll make sure that we get a copy sent to you. I do Blog Talk Radio, so it's on there, and then I also upload my shows to YouTube. So it'll be in both different places, so that this way you've got that information. And I've been delighted to have you on. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure is also mine. It's wonderful to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Make sure you spread the word. If there's anybody that needs anything out there, I'm more than happy to accommodate everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm off to do my second interview, but I'm glad you stopped by. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you also have a very good
dear.
weekend.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank
we'll
you.
talk to you soon.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye. Tell me that lady wasn't fabulous. She's so little and bite-sized and so full of information. She's so cool. One more time reminding everybody, it's Acmee, and that's Acmee, pelvicwellness.com. She has 2 places on Facebook she's on, same name for her business page, and then, of course, her personal. It's Meenal. It's Meenal, and the last name Mujumdar. She has an Instagram, a LinkedIn, and she's also on YouTube. As you heard, she doesn't have the Twitter thing yet, but let's get real. I'm not going to lie to you folks. I'm on Twitter. I don't even know if I use it half the time. Why? Because it's being taken over by Instagram, etc. So I'm very excited. Hopefully she will take part in my magazine, which is eventually starting next year if my health cooperates. And, of course, the film, which you know we've been talking about, I Am Me, Not My Mania. I'm very, very super, super excited about doing that one because it incorporates some of my friends, a lot of great music, a lot of great talent, and a lot of mental health patients like myself. Isn't that wonderful that I'm excited that I'm a mental health patient? You would think some people wouldn't like that. So we've got a little bit of free time on the air here because my next guest isn't on as of yet, so let's fill some time. I do not want to forget to mention that 95% of the time, all the ideas on this show usually come from a combination of sources. It's usually myself that I say I like somebody on TV and film, or my friends come to me and they suggest someone, or in this particular case, I have an individual that comes to me that's either in the social media or PR realm. Ethel is in the social media realm, and let me talk to you about her. She runs this corporation, and her and I met each other, I think it was October of this year. She runs a place called Rebel Vision Marketing. Her website, to be exact, is www.bfitmarketing.com. She deals with typically individuals that work within either health, fitness, spa, or wellness. I can tell you first and foremost that not only is she professional and not only is she perfect at what she does, because I'm not going to lie to you, if I was stuck doing social media day in and day out, I'd go insane and I'd probably hurt someone. So if you are in any of those places, any of those spots, you need anything big or small relative to social media, she would be your girl. She is conveniently located in, I want to say North Carolina. Please forgive me, Ethel, if I got that wrong. She's in one of those states. In any case, she actually goes to New Jersey. She goes to New York. She's open and willing to take clients from all sorts of other places. We've certainly talked on more than one occasion, emerging forces, in which case I could do PR, she could do social media. So please don't be afraid to reach out to her for either or. I think she'd be phenomenal for anybody that's around and looking for something that they need. And she's reasonable in price, and she's cute, and she's very easy to work with. So listen to me when I tell you, go talk to her. Go look at her website. Go check out her services. I'd appreciate it. Couple quick things since we have time to talk on the radio, since I'm waiting for our next guest to come on. I want to remind everybody about something special that's going on this year in Milwaukee. We have a couple of different things, obviously, besides the casting of my own film. Jack and Jill is playing this weekend. As we all know, I'm live and real when I say these are classically, when it comes to Christmas music and jazzy, smooth, soulful sounds that are not from, I'm trying to think of the right word to put it, Jack and Jill. just look up Jack and Jill Music. They're playing all weekend long in Racine. I'm big on toting my live music friends and those that are local, so please go out and check them out. If by chance you didn't get on my Facebook social media page, Steven Seafelt is a dear friend of mine who runs an organic farm. Chances are very great we're going to be shooting some of my film there. He has a dear friend that's in need right now. Sadly, he has come upon some hard times. So if you have any perishable foods that you can donate, he has a GoFundMe page that you can go ahead and check out. I wish I knew his name. Sadly, Steven didn't give it to me. So unfortunately, I can't tout that for you. But if you go to my social media page, you can go ahead and check it out and see what we've got available as far as that goes. So make sure that you do that. If you can take 5 seconds to stop at the farm, I can't even begin to thank you. I mean, I will kiss the ground you walk on. This guy really needs some serious help. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to him, so I'm like, okay. I also don't want to forget my dear friend Nir Saba, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Check out his Instagram account. It's called Making People Happy. He is using his Instagram posts to strive to share inspiring and motivating quotes daily on an ongoing basis. Why am I excited about that? Because I'm all about doing that on my own page. If you read my own page every day, you always see the if you're reading this now thing. It's a big deal. And why? Because I'm not going to lie to you. Look at the world we're living in right now, right? I mean, people are, I'm going to say 50-50 on the happy-unhappy scale. So the fact that a PR person has taken the time to set up an entire Instagram followed by over 17,000 people, that tells me he's trying to get somebody's attention and in the right way. And nowadays, that doesn't always happen in our world, let alone in our field. So please make it a point to do so. Follow him, follow his account. It's Making People Happy on Instagram. So excited that I'm having him on the show in January. That's a reminder to folks that are listening in. If you're a publicist or otherwise, I really need you to let me know, probably by the end of the weekend, if you need to get somebody booked in January. I'm literally almost booked. Well, I'm clearly overbooked for this month, and then second of all, I'm almost completely booked for next month, and I hate to do that because I know that there are people that are squeezing in, and so I want to get them squeezed in. So please, folks, get me your information, get me your request, tell me you need somebody ASAP because I hate to see you get locked out. Don't want to forget to mention, let's go back to tomorrow's show because, yes, I think during the course of this interview, we figured it out. There's a girl by the name of Monique. I'm going to spell the last name, Benabou. She was previously on The Voice. She is currently now one of the top 5 finalists for, apparently Usher has a new show. It's called Usher's Megastar Contest. Apparently Megastar is the first global talent competition mobile app where someone eventually ends up winning $1 million. So obviously it behooves this girl to come on my show. I have a large following. Apparently he's going to be announcing the winner next Friday the 15th. But it turns out that the voting itself is actually ending by tomorrow at 3 o'clock time, and I want to make sure if that's LA time or if it's Central time. In any case, she's a lovely young woman, absolutely beautiful, breathtaking. So sadly, my poor Scientologist has to wait another week, and I apologize, Chris, and I hope you're not mad at me. In any case, we're going to be having her on at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're going to have her most likely sing on air. I'm going to play something that she has done before in terms of recorded music so you get a sense of how she sounds and how she performs. And then if you're impressed, I'm going to beg and plead with you to go vote for her. Why? Because she's a young girl, and God knows she could probably use $1 million. Oh, wait, maybe I could use $1 million, but I can't sing. Anyways, I'm always big on advocating that. The sooner that they get started, the sooner they become more successful. So it's important to me. Please tune in if you can. Obviously, of course, all of my episodes are archived. Sorry for the confusion, by the way, this week, folks. I know that it's on the celebrity chat format versus my regular format, Stin's Chat Corner. Just so you folks know, starting Monday, we'll go back to the regular regimen, which is blogtalkradio.com, Sins-chat-corner. So it'll be my regular platform with a regular call-in number. I don't know what the heck is going on with this platform, but I need to find something else. So make sure that you go ahead and you tune in. Also want to not forget, because I promised that I would remind everybody, our dear friend Scotty V is playing in Milwaukee. That's likely where you're going to find me before I submerge myself in endless writing projects. I don't think I can leave my house after tonight all weekend long. I'm going to be submerged in all sorts of good stuff. To those folks that are listening in, we already talked about my film casting. We've already talked about New York City. Anybody who is in New York or the surrounding area and wants to do filming with me, I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago on my show. There's a gentleman who's young who's starting up a web series, and he is doing a day in the life of. It's relatively similar to reality TV meets real people sort of thing. In any case, we all know how much I hate being in front of the camera, and yes, I do, but I agreed to do it because he's young and he wants interesting people, and he apparently thinks I'm interesting, and my friends are interesting. So we're going to have a Real Housewives taping there. I think I've talked Ethel into going in and taping with me. Some of my clients that I have done work with before, maybe a musician or two, you don't even know who's going to be on this. I'm so excited. And definitely we're going to have a motorcycle or two because I don't really care if it's January. If it's warm enough, we're going to find somewhere we're going to ride for like 2 miles if I'm lucky and not delusional. In any case, if anybody's interested and they're going to be in either New York or New Jersey area and you're close enough, it's going to be on January 6th. We're going to be filming for, I think, 6 hours total. That doesn't mean 6 hours for you. It means 6 hours for me. So if you're interested, send me a quick note, personal message via social media. Otherwise, go ahead and email me again directly. It's CIN4251@gmail.com. And then this way, then we can go ahead and structure something there. January 3rd, I'm scheduled to be in the South Bronx where I'm going to be teaching full-day class to underprivileged children. I'm so excited about this because it's one of my favorite things to do. Teaching and teaching to the youth is far more significant than most people realize. Why? Because they're up and coming. That's not to say I'm dead. What that is meant to say is that it's important that we're structuring our young ones to be able to becoming phenomenal older ones, so to speak. So I'm excited about that. So from the 3rd to the 7th, in essence, basically New York City is holding my heart. In a perfect world, New York City will be holding me before Christmas comes. My dear fans, my friends, my loved ones, everybody that I love is there, and I miss them very much. So I'm hoping to get back there. So we'll have to see. Otherwise, it's going to have to be January like last year, and I can live with that. Hopefully we're going to have our next guest on shortly, but I want to make sure to remind everybody about next week's schedule as well. Since we have some free time and I'm sitting here waiting patiently, and I don't mind that whatsoever because it's just prolonging my inevitable work schedule this afternoon. So next week, Monday, we have Pete Dorton coming on the show. You guys might remember that name because Pete Dorton was part of the writing, producing, and acting team that put together the short film Lou. If you have not seen it, go onto Facebook and just type in the words LOU. You'll see Pete. He's very tall. He's there with his dog. He wrote a project about his best friend that ended up actually winning at the Art is Alive, which is my film festival. In case you haven't checked it out, Art is Alive Film Festival on Facebook, artisalive.filmfestival.yolosite.com. He's coming on the show Monday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon Central Time. We're going to talk about that film, the new films. We're going to talk about acting and working in New York City. Excited. Tuesday, we are having Stiletto Jim come on. Carla with Stiletto Jim is going to be on. We get to talk about all sorts of really cool stuff, including the fact that I'm too timid to do pole dancing, let alone other things. And then rapidly after that, at 2 o'clock, John Kinross, our rescheduled interview from yesterday, and I feel really bad about that. It was weird. We had one interview, and then we couldn't get him attached onto the phone. So sadly, we'll have to reschedule him for the 12th at Tuesday Central Standard Time. He is an individual who has spent a significant amount of time researching how women can protect themselves before the divorce comes and then after the divorce comes. I know it sounds strange, doesn't it? But there is a positive twist to it. So please tune in Tuesday at 2 o'clock Central for that. This is when you know I haven't slept enough. Wednesday, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time. Todd, see what I mean? And this is without me and wine. Imagine if I had a few, which it's getting to that point. Todd with SimFit, who is also a rescheduled interview, will be 5 o'clock Central Standard Time that day. I'm super excited about talking to him because he's got this new TV channel that's coming out. He's got all sorts of different really cool ways to combine physical therapy along with actual working out, etc. Better ways to build our body up better. So excited about that. That's 5 o'clock Wednesday. Then directly after that, I'm going to be at the Buck Bradley holiday party, just throwing that out there in case anybody wants to come, buy a drink, have a drink, the whole 9 yards. Then 14th, Ted Hale is coming on at 2 o'clock Central Standard Time. Super excited about this. This must be like Ethel Client Week because every one of these are Ethel's clients. So that's 2 o'clock Thursday the 14th, and then we round out the last part of the week with Michael Gross at 1:30 Central Standard Time. Michael is a life coach, similar to today's guest, who puts a very positive twist on things in a very interesting sort of way. I love Michael. He has a very great stage presence. His YouTube videos are over the top and sensational as it comes to, I've read a lot of the feedback that comes from it. He's just a feel-good person that you just feel good around. I don't know how else to describe him. He is awesome. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that I go ahead and put up the post on the show page in terms of promotion, who we're going to have, when we're going to have them, all their social media links, and otherwise you can check them out. with any luck at all, we'll have Catherine on the line shortly. So that takes care of next week. Let's see, what else can we talk about? Oh, well, we could talk about the president, but we don't want to do that, obviously. I will tell you that I am working on putting together another batch. If you guys might remember, I went to Rochester, New York last year. And we went ahead and put together a drive where I took 20 bags, I think it was, Rochester, New York. I took it to the homeless, 20 bags of clothing, objects, items, the whole 9 yards. Super, super fun. Super, super excited to be doing that. It was an amazing journey. I mean, I'm not going to lie, 16 hours in a car wasn't fun. But what's so neat about it is that the people were so receptive and warm and welcoming and just totally giving. I can't even express to you how all of that time and work was worth it just to see the look on these people's faces. I think oftentimes when the holidays come, it's even more obvious to us, and if it's not in your world, it should be right now. It's not pretty, meaning sleeping on a sidewalk when it's 20 degrees out, not pretty. Most of the time I notice people don't even look at the homeless. They don't give them a face, and they don't give them what they need. That respect, that reverence. They were people at one time. They're still people at one time. So now when you're out and about and you're buying presents and you're doing all sorts of things, don't forget. I know it sounds very cliche, but the reason for this season has everything to do with heart work and not how much work you do with spending what's in your wallet. So I throw that out there because it's significantly important to me that people understand that Christmas can be all year round. And again, I know I'm getting off on my little nostalgic thing, but you know what? I don't really care because I can because it's my show. And we had to wait for Catherine, and it looks like Catherine's finally here. So let's get on to phase 2 of my day, and let's talk about presenting perfection. Is this Catherine?
It is. How are you?
Catherine, I got to tell you, I'm seriously nervous. I mean, I got 2 back-to-back females that are strong, successful. I mean, would you want to be me right now? It's a little intimidating. Not going to lie about that.
But it's a banner. Given all that's going on in society right now, it's nice to have more strong women to come out and talk about things, right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, I think what I find frustrating is I work more on the entertainment side of things. So often, a lot of my friends are filmmakers, actors, actresses, and I hear about it all the time. It's hard. It's tough to stay female in terms of being strong and being respected and get the things you want. So, yes, I absolutely love having females on my show. I want to start off by saying thanks so much for accommodating your schedule to come back on the show. We had a little mix-up there, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad that you're here. I wish I was in New York doing this live, but sadly I'm in Wisconsin in a very cold 20-degree day. What's it like there in the city?
It is cloudy, and it feels like snow. It's probably about 35 degrees or so, 40 degrees, and you feel like the snow in the air. So it's kind of crazy,
right?
But, it's the holiday season, so it's about time to get some stuff.
Exactly. I was just talking about that today, as a matter of fact. I was going to go out and see the lights tonight, and then I thought to myself I might be stuck frozen in the middle of the park. So I'm not so sure that's a good idea. But I'm thinking about it. Because it's true. It's, like, ridiculous. I get all excited about going out and doing stuff, and I'm like, oh, wait, you're going to freeze your tuchus off. So I'm like, I might rethink that. Or to have a lot of wine. I found that
I know.
Have a lot of wine.
I walked out of the house with a black hat on with a big furry ball on top of it this morning, and my husband was like, you look Nordic, and I said, it's cold outside. So there you have it. It's
like, try being warm in this society. I'm telling you, it's not fun. So here I am all excited to move to New York City, and the reality is, I don't know why, considering it's as cold there, it's maybe 10 degrees warmer over there than it is there. So we'll see. Maybe by the time I move there in 6 years, it'll be nicer, cheaper, other things. We'll see how it goes.
Maybe one can dream.
So, that's what I'm thinking. So there's a lot to talk about. You and I have some things in common, which is exciting. I'm very excited about this because this concept is different. It's not often I get to interview somebody that's in this circle, so I'm excited about that. So let's start in the beginning because I always like to do an introspective interview and talk about things that are all over the place. So to begin with, first of all, when you started taking on this realm, going into this circle when you were much younger and getting educated on this, did you know that this was a field or a path that you wanted to go on, or how did all of this start? Where did the inclination come from?
For the company, I'm assuming you mean. For presenting perfection.
I mean in general, meaning because I see a lot of the stuff you do, but you know how sometimes, like, I knew I wanted to be a writer at 8. Now I'm 48, and of course I'm a writer, but it doesn't always end up that way. So young Catherine might have had other goals.
No, it does. It goes way back. So it kind of all started, I think, when I was in probably my sophomore year of high school. And I vividly remember I was walking up the steps of the science. We had a science building. I went to one of these private schools that had a campus. So I was walking up the steps of the science building going to my chemistry class, which I knew would be a dreadful day because I'm really not very good at science at all. And I turned to my friend that I was with, and I said, you know what? I said, I figured out what I want to do when I get older. I said, I want to be the next editor of Vogue. And so now, mind you, Anna Wintour was in that position then. She's in the position now, but, we can all dream. So that kind of helped me figure out with that focus that I wanted to go into communications. And I didn't really know kind of what that meant or where it was going to lead to, but it all started with an idea. Because I've learned over time, as I'm sure you have, I've learned what I'm good at, I've learned what I'm terrible at, and I've learned what I'm okay at. And I've always been a good writer. And I've always been social, outgoing. And it's grown over time, of course. And I think living in New York City for a super long time definitely made me more social, even than I was in high school. The initial sort of kernel came back in high school, and so then I went on to study communications, in college at Cornell, and then I went on to get my graduate degree at Columbia in journalism. And the theme through that, all of that study was the writing was, and both as a journalist and as a professor and as a PR person. You're always in a position where you're connecting people. You're asking people questions. You're getting information. You're processing it, and then you're moving on. So, like I said, all that started at a very, very, very young age, 14 or 15, back in high school. So, yeah. So it's funny when I tell the story. People are like, "So you always knew what you wanted to do?" I said, "No, I knew the field, but I didn't know where in the field I wanted to be." And so, and so the path has kind of led me to where I am now.
You bet. And that's an interesting thing that you bring up in terms of, I always like to talk to people about public relations. And so because you have some area of expertise there, let's talk about that a bit, because I find myself very disheartened by the direction in terms of how things are going from a PR standpoint. So I'm always curious to ask people that come on, what your general feel is. Obviously, we're moving in amends towards, to some degree, it's great to have more social media exposure. And I'm all about, if you can make it work in the social media realm, good for you. I'm 120% on board for that. And then on the flip side of the fence, the girl here who uses a typewriter right, which I do, is all like, what happened to let me pick up a phone, let me drop you a letter, let me do this and this? Where did pay for placement come? Where did this whole media escort thing come from? What the hell? I mean, I don't mean to be crass, but do you know what I'm saying?
No, I know.
Really?
No, but it's funny. I'm sure, I always joke with other women that I know, or when I teach my students in college, that when your phone rings, now you look at it, and your first reaction to it is, well, should I answer it? And typically now, if we don't know the number, we don't pick it up.
Right.
So, and if you roll back time and you go back to what used to be, we all used to actually pick up the phone and call each other. And I have to say, it's kind of amazing how far we've come from that. And now with things like Skype and other, video-based platforms, now a lot of people like to talk to each other, virtually face-to-face when they're having a conversation. And, it's amazing how far we've come, but I think what's gotten lost is just basic social grace in a lot of this. And a lot of people rely too much on social media to get the word out. And I think what I'm seeing, at least with a lot of people that I know and myself personally, I have social media overload. So if you want me to go to an event, or if you want me to attend a lecture or something like that, send me an email. Calling me would be great, but at least send me an email. Don't put it on Facebook and, send me some electronic thing. Because I personally get probably between 30 and 50 of those event, whatever they call them, calendar invites through Facebook every day. And I don't go on Facebook. I actually don't go on Facebook every day. Imagine that. So for me, I miss stuff. People are like, oh, my God, you missed my event. It's like, well, you didn't tell me about it. Oh, well, we put it on Facebook. Well, that's nothing to me. So for the field of public relations, where we started, when I started, we wrote press releases. We actually emailed them to reporters. With the reporters that we knew, we called and follow up. We had in-person interviews. It was old school. And the funny story about how I got into PR was, as I said, I was always wanted to go into communications, and so I got my graduate degree at Columbia Journalism, and I got out and I had this great internship at Crane's New York Business, and it was a full-time, paid but not temporary internship. So I knew after 6 months I was going to have to find a job, and so I was covering. It was in New York City, and I was covering arts and culture and restaurants. I would get to go all of these restaurants and write reviews, and I would go to museums and meet the gallery owner, and I loved it because I'm a big foodie and a big arts person. So one day I was at a meeting, and I was sitting there, writing the story about this gallery down in Chelsea, and the PR person was there. And I remember, and she just seemed to be having such a good time. And, you know, in terms of talking about the gallery and the owner and the collection and how they got to be where they were. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, I enjoy writing, but, like, she seems to be having more fun than I am. And so I went back to my office, and I was like, gosh, I have to figure out how to do that. And I didn't even really know what her job was. I mean, that's how naive I was. So I, you know, at the end of the 6-month internship, I had to find a job. So talk about old school. I answered an ad in the New York Times, and it said, if you have what it takes to manage a marketing account, fax us your resume. Fax
oh
us
my
your resume.
God.
So I did, and it was a PR job, and I wound up getting it. I was working for this little boutique firm in the city that no longer exists, but it was eventually bought by Weber Shandwick. And I got to work on IBM because I've always been really interested in technology, so I got to work on the IBM account. And it was just me and a senior vice president, so I did all the work. And I had to write a press release. And I'd never written a press release before. Like, they don't cover that in journalism school. They cover, you know, article writing, newspaper writing, magazine writing, radio writing. So I called my mom. And I was like, Mom, I have to write a press release. And she said, honey, she goes, well, because she's always been a teacher. And she said, honey, all I can tell you is the most important information goes on the top and the least important information goes on the bottom. In other words, the inverted pyramid, right? That it's it's such a hallmark of journalism and PR. And she goes, that's all I can tell you. So that's how I started in PR. And I teach classes now at a couple of colleges at Rutgers and William Patterson, and I teach PR class, teach my students. And I always joke with them, I'm like, guys, you know, everything I'm teaching you, I learned by doing it. I said, I had in me teaching me this stuff because I you know. Right. So it's really, really ironic, but I loved it. And I loved the old school way of doing PR. I loved meeting with people and calling and talking about companies and developing ideas and developing stories. And I find now I have a couple of PR clients that I work with, and I still do it old school. You know, I do my research not by going onto some big old database. I actually run searches and see who writes about comparable companies and look up their bios and read their stories. And then I call them. And the irony is so few people call them anymore that unlike, you know, decades ago when I first started where the reporters would literally hang up on you, I'm not making that up, these days they actually chat because no one bothers them by a phone anymore.
I know.
It's really interesting how much it's all changed and how old school has actually become almost like new school because there's so much focus on social media and email and you know, Instagram and all this stuff that some of the old school ways are actually more impactful than all the new school stuff.
And I want to make a clear point on that, you know, because like one of my dear friends is on a TV show and she does like the Facebook Live and the live tweets.
Yeah, of course.
And I'm all for that. I mean, I think that's great because it's interactive. Right. Yeah. But I'm not going to lie to you. You know, the PR thing, we're totally on board. And one day we'll have to meet and talk about the PR side of things because the other day one of my friends posted he's now charging $2,500 a day. I have one that's charging $250 an hour. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, we're not doing PR back in 1995. We're now doing PR in the world of 2017. And, yeah, budget cuts need to be made. People are broke. I can't even afford to pay. If I can't pay someone $250 for me, I'm pretty sure that nobody else I know can do it unless they're, you know, in the higher realm. You know, that and the other thing is my personal, I don't want to get on this too much because we could talk all day. The AB thing. Everybody is tiered now by letters. Are they AB list celebrities? Are they top tier publications?
Are they
You'll
verified?
Oh my God, that's the other thing. I bought Instagram followers, but they have a lot of followers. Really, they do. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but you'll notice when you're done with this interview and it gets sent to you that the tag on your interview says celebrity. Everyone that comes on my show is a celebrity because they inspire or educate or motivate. And you, my dear, fall under that classification. So we'll have to talk PR sometime because I just love talking PR because I get frustrated. I just do because I love the field and I'm getting more into it. And people want you know. And just out of curiosity, if you can tell me how I can get in contact with international PR, I'll love you to death because I'm working on a case right now where I'm like Vietnamese and Brazil and Indonesia and they won't answer me. And I'm like, okay. So that's going to be my afternoon is finding out after talking to the lovely Catherine, of course.
You and I can talk about that stuff offline.
Oh, you bet. Okay, so now here you are. So you're going down this path and in this realm in terms of that.
Yeah.
Now, oftentimes we talk about on my show, like I've had children. So obviously I did go to school for a year in journalism, and then I quit because I wanted to be a mom more than I wanted to be a scholar, so to speak. And I've managed to do a lot since then. So if people are listening in, we talk a lot about formalized education versus the school of life. So if you were to advise somebody, especially because you're coaching individuals that are going out to try to get somewhere in their life, and from a professional standpoint, are you pushing the education factor, a combination of both, or what's your introspect in regards to that?
To me, it's a combination of both. I think,
Okay.
I mean, and I will wholeheartedly say this. There are some amazing schools in the country and in the world, and I was very, very fortunate. I mean, I mean very, very fortunate to go where I went. I received a tremendous education that was incredibly rigorous, but I got through it, and I look back and say to myself, how did I ever get into these places? But I did, and I survived. In some cases, survive is truly the right word because it was hard.
Sure.
And it was worth every ounce of my time and every dollar of my money because I've just been so incredibly fortunate with the doors that it's opened. But that being said, there are a whole bunch of, this is something that I could talk about for years, I think. There's this pressure to get the 4-year college degree. And I'll tell you, I've been teaching now on the college level for 9 years. And I've taught at community colleges, and I've taught at big D1 schools. And there are certain students that need to go to college and get a 4-year degree, and there are certain students that could go to 2 years to a community college and then transfer to a 4-year college, and they'd be great. And there are other students that all they need to do is go to that community college for a couple of years because they know what they want to do. They just need a little bit of education to help them get there. And to me, the most important thing that you can do is to get real-world experience. I mean, I started interning in communications when I was 14. And I wrote for a local magazine, and I covered it was like a magazine that focused on the hardware industry, so it really wasn't very exciting. But I wrote articles about the hardware industry and different types of gadgets and all that kind of good stuff, and I didn't get paid. I did it for free. I just did it for experience and clips. And then when I was in college, I was fortunate enough to be able to go overseas, and I actually worked for CNN for the summer. But again, I didn't get paid. I actually paid for that internship because I was paying to live in London. But I always tell my students, the most important thing that you could do is go out in the world and try, and go out in the world and see. Because if you don't try and if you don't see, how are you going to know if it's the right career for you? You're not. And, the hard part about, anything, any job, any school, is it takes time to figure out whether or not you actually want to be there or actually want to be in that position. But it's incredibly important that people realize that if you don't like it, you should pivot and change. If you don't like the school, you can transfer. If you don't like the career, especially when you're in your early 20s, change. Because as you know, the further you get into an education or the further you get into a career, the harder it is to pivot out. And I absolutely, positively love what I do. Love what I do. And I've been very fortunate. For the most part, I always have. And when there have been moments where I haven't liked the environment that I've worked in or I haven't liked the person that I've worked for, I've given it time to kind of let itself play out. But if after 6 months, 9 months, it isn't in the right place, I've left. And that's not always the easy thing to do. But, we only go through this adventure of life once. And
I know.
It's up to each of us to make the most of it. So I always tell everyone, find the school that's right for you. Find the program that's right for you. People get pressured from their parents, and we want you to go here, we want you to major in this. You're you. And by the time you get to be 18 or 19, you kind of have some idea of what you want to do. And if you don't, it's okay. I met with somebody last week, someone's son, and he wanted me to sit down with this kid and help him focus. And so I sat with the kid at lunch in New York, and we were talking, and he's like, well, he goes, here's the thing. He's like, I don't know what I want to do. And I said to him, who does? I said, that's part of the fun of life is you just kind of stumble upon something. And I knew for myself, like, my parents are both PhDs, so I swore I would never teach college because I couldn't do what my parents did because, like, let's say almost come in full circle. And I'll tell you, the first day I wound up teaching, it was like a circumstance that came about 9 years ago. And the first class I was in, I'm standing in front of the classroom talking to these kids, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, I love this. I absolutely love this. And it was just a local community college in upstate New York. But it was amazing. And I've taught thousands of students now in the past 9 years. And every time I go into that classroom and every time I get in front of those kids, it is that amazing experience over and over again. And this was something that I never, ever, ever planned to do, but it's just something that kind of came about. And so as far as the whole education thing, college is great, but college isn't for everybody. A four-year degree is great, but a four-year degree can be very, very expensive. So if you're someone who has kids that, just wanted to go to a community college for a while, that's fine. Because let me tell you, some of the smartest people I know that teach at community colleges. The adjuncts that we had when I was in upstate New York teaching, they were better than some of the full-time faculty members at some of the bigger institutions up there. And it's because these are people that actually work in the field. And these people actually can teach your son or daughter what it's like to be working in XYZ career. And so it's something to really think about. So I always tell people, no one ever asks you where you started college. They always ask you where you graduated from. And even if you graduated from a school that's an Ivy League, that's fantastic. If you graduated from a school that's a mini Ivy, that's awesome. If you're fortunate enough to go to a big state school that has awesome connections, that's amazing. But if you're someone that just winds up at a local college or a smaller four-year private school, if you couple that with experience that you've volunteered or been fortunate enough and gotten paid for, you're going to have such a great resume when you get out of school. So to me, it's a mix of real-world experience coupled with that classroom experience. But anybody can go to school. Anybody can for the most part. But it's going out into that field and learning how to put that stuff to work that makes the difference between someone that I'm going to hire. Let me tell you that one. So I believe you need to do both things.
You betcha. Now, I'm going to ask you a bunch of different random questions that are all relative to you, but I think it all leads to some great background. Like, for instance, I know you do New York and New Jersey area, but also Connecticut and Pennsylvania.
Yes.
What made you pick that particular market area as compared to, like, let's say, Los Angeles or Vegas or somewhere different? Why this location?
Well, I'm a product of Philadelphia, and I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia called Bucks County, and so I'm a huge Eagles fan. Go Eagles! And I went to college at Cornell, and then I moved to New York, and did that whole 20-something thing in the city, and so I've really gotten to know this area. And I really feel like I, given my Philly background and my long-term residency in the New York tri-state, kind of understand the people, the values, the culture that's here. And in time, I would love to expand my own business to be West Coast, but for now, we're focusing on sort of the tri-state Philly area.
Very nice. I like that idea because I love the Philly area in general, period. Okay, Next thing we want to talk about here is you've been in business for about 3.5 years. So my question to you is this. When you first started this up and was coming together in terms of figuring out how I want to handle this and where I want to handle this, et cetera, is there competition in this area? Because I was trying to look up and see, like, who else does what you do, et cetera. And so I was wondering.
It's a great question. The thing is, there aren't a lot of people that do what I do. And that's one of the messages that we're really trying to get out there. Let me give you the genesis of how this all came to be because it might help explain.
Please.
So we were living in upstate New York, and my son was, when I mean upstate, I mean like the Rochester area. And so truly upstate, not Westchester. Some people in New York City will say, oh, you live upstate? You live in Briarcliff Manor? It's like, no, I was 5 hours northwest of New York City. So closer to Cleveland than I was New York City. So anyway, we're very fortunate. We lived in a great suburb up there and a tremendous public school system. So my kids were learning great stuff about math and science and geography and they had language and all this stuff. But my son came home when he was in 4th grade and he had to do a presentation. And he said to me, Mom, I've got to put together a PowerPoint. I have to get up in front of the room and give a presentation. And I said, well, on what? He goes, I don't know. And I said, well, did the teacher give you a format or a rubric? No. So I emailed the teacher, and I went in and talked to her, and we sat down, and I said, well, so, because at that point I was teaching communications, and specifically public speaking on the college level. And so I said to her, so how are you teaching this in the class? She goes, I don't. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't? She goes, we can't. I said, what do you mean you can't? We don't have room. She said, we don't have room in the curriculum. And I said, well, then why are the kids being asked to do this? She said, well, because we know it's important, but we're relying on the parents to teach the kids how to do it. So I noodled that whole, conversation around for a while, and I talked to some friends up there, and a close friend of mine, actually also a Cornell grad, said to me, Catherine, you should turn this into like a thing, like for kids. And so, again, I sat on the idea for a while, and I found out that we were fortunately moving back to this part of the country. So we got back down to the New York City area after having been up in Western New York for 4 years, and we wound up. The kids were in public school, and again, we wound up, in an elementary school curriculum, and again, I saw that public speaking was not being taught at the elementary and very, very little at the middle school and high school levels. So I said, you know what? I had this idea. Let me try. So that's where the idea for Presenting Perfection came from. It came from the fact that most public schools in the U.S., especially now with the core curriculum, they don't have the bandwidth or even the ability to teach kids public speaking. And the irony of the whole thing is that most adults fear public speaking. I mean, there's this great stat. I mean, it's staggering that most people would rather be killed than have to give a speech. And that just makes no sense to me. You'd rather be 6 feet under than give a speech. But
crazy,
it's actually, people are so afraid of it. And so my whole theory, and it's one that I started, almost 4 years ago, one I believe so much now, is if we could teach kids to give a speech when they learn how to ride a bike, that as adults, it would be so much easier for them.
Right.
Because you think about it, getting on a bike is kind of scary, right? You got to go up there. You got to get on it yourself. You got to learn how to balance. You got to learn how to maneuver. It's kind of like giving a speech. You got to get up in front of that room. You got to learn who to look at. You got to learn how to use your posture properly. And it's all on your own, just like riding that bike. Like when you're riding that bike, your parent can push you and let you go, like we all remember doing when we were kids, and you start pedaling. But it's ultimately up to you to stay balanced. And when you give that speech, I or somebody else can prep you and whatever, but if you remember how to do it from when you were a kid, as an adult, it's going to be so much easier. So that was where the idea for the company came from. So originally it was just going to focus on little kids, meaning 3rd to 5th grade, because, again, no one's doing it. And there are groups like Toastmasters that have, like, little kid groups, but it's not like mine. Mine's very, very different, and my programs are very, very specifically designed for the age group. So originally it was just Presenting Perfection, and then I figured, you know what, let me try to develop different programs for different ages. So what it's turned into and continues to grow as is we have Presenting for Kids, which is a program designed for kids 3rd to 5th grade. Now you're saying, why 3rd grade? Because I've had parents ask me, can their 7-year-old or their 6-year-old do it? And I would love to do the program at that level, but the issue is kids need to be able to write down their ideas. And most kids don't write so well until like 2nd or 3rd grade. So usually I start the program at 3rd grade because kids have some, they can write stuff down. They know most of them know how to spell. They can organize their ideas. So that initial program, I've offered in local elementary schools around here, and it takes kids through how to meet somebody for the first time in the real world, how to engage in conversation, so the whole concept of storytelling, how to ask questions of people, because people don't know how to ask questions anymore because they don't talk face to face that much anymore. And then ultimately how to get up in front of a room of your peers, and it might be your kids that are 8 or 9 years old if you're in 3rd or 4th grade, or it might be kids at the high school level as you get older, but it's how to get up and give like a basic speech. And at the elementary level, what we do is we look at things like book reports, or presentations like my kid had to do. Very simple stuff. And then I realized that, well, gosh, because of the changes in the public school curriculum, these middle schoolers don't have it easier. And in middle school, either. And in middle school, you have to give even more presentations. And in middle school, kids have anxiety about a lot of different things because middle school, as we all know, is a really tough time for most kids. So then I figured, well, gosh, why don't I put together a program that works with teens and tweens? So that's where the idea for Tween Speech came from. So Tween Speech is kind of the Presenting for Kids program, but for older kids. And it really we work with kids from ages 11 to 18. And we look at communication challenges that those kids have, both in presenting and in the real world. So I call it real-world conversation. And I have a lot of people that come to me now who say, can you work with my kid on social anxiety? Because what's happening, and I know we all fall into this category, is you go into Facebook, you go into Twitter, you go into Snapchat, you go into Instagram, and we have all these friends, quote unquote, 500, 1,000, whatever, whoever you are, And for the teens, because they're younger, they don't realize that all those people really, really aren't their friends. And what's happened to a lot of children is that they'll be on Snapchat with someone. They'll spend all day Saturday or Sunday when they could be outside, riding a bike, playing lacrosse, playing basketball on Snapchat or Instagram with their friends. And then they think, they had this great conversation. They're going to talk to them more during the week. They go to school Monday morning. They say hello to that child in the hallway, and the child does not even acknowledge them. And what that does is it causes the kid to do two things. A, to wonder what it was that they said in that conversation that made the other kid upset. And two, it makes the kid feel insecure about their ability to communicate in the real world. And what's happening is time and time again, day in and day out these days, these kids are having these amazing experiences on social media, conversation-wise, but when they see that person in the real world, that person doesn't give them the time of day. So kids don't have a grasp of, well, who's my friend and who isn't my friend. And then what happens, that same kid that ignores them in the hallway will go after them on Snapchat or Twitter or Instagram if they don't continue to partake in the dialogue. So it's a really, really weird time. And what's happening, again, is all these kids are developing an incredible amount of social anxiety because they don't really know who their friends are. And, being a teenager is hard enough, but to not know really who your friends are, who you can really talk to, who has your back, think how unnerving that must be. And so that's how the genesis of how the crux of the program really developed. And then what we've seen now is we offer programs for adults too, because what's happening is because, again, of this whole social media influence, a lot of adults are getting some of that social anxiety they had back when they were kids and just awkward. It's coming back because, again, they're having to participate in real-world conversations, virtual world conversations. Some of them maybe had hated public speaking back when they were little, and now they've been asked to give a speech. And, you can't ask your peer at work to listen to your speech because your peer might try that to outbeat you, to be competitive with you. So the whole program really started from this genesis of something that isn't currently being done in the public school system, and it's kind of taken on a life of its own.
Well, and that poses some interesting questions here. Like, for instance, I know that two of the things that you're speaking on here that are important that you project to any client, whether it's younger, older, et cetera, is not only vanquishing the fear, but also adding more focus in terms of that. I think oftentimes, let's step it back and go to this. Any situation, for instance, like an interview, a job interview, or interaction between peers or sometimes between adults can be very scary depending on the end result or circumstances. So how do you, within your core group, manage to bring more focus and minimize the fear level, whether it's an adult or a child?
Part of it is reversing the idea of what an interview or a conversation is, in that people fear them because they're afraid of what people are going to ask them. But if you think about it as an opportunity to share select things about yourself with other people, it changes the dynamics. And it's just like a speech, right? When you go and give a speech, be it one that you're giving in a classroom or one that you're giving in a big public forum, for the most part, people are there because they want to listen to you. So rather than be afraid of getting up there, view it as an opportunity to share things about your topic with an audience that is there to listen. And if it's a job interview, view it as an opportunity to share things about yourself that you think are relevant to this job, right? Because hopefully, if you're interviewing for a job, interviewing to go to a college, you either want to go to that college or that university, or you want that job. And rather than being afraid of, oh my God, what are they going to ask me about myself? if you think about who you are and what it is that you have to share about yourself that's relevant to that very, very specific audience of that company or that university or that college, it's very, very different. So I tell people, and in society we tend to think in threes, right? Just how it is. I'm not sure why.
Yep.
Because I think we remember it easier. I always tell people, and I don't care if it's a holiday cocktail party, if it's a conversation with Santa Claus, or if it's a job interview or a college interview, right? The whole basic principle is the same. You are having a conversation with someone about yourself.
Right.
So when you walk into that holiday cocktail party by yourself, and rather than going over to the room and getting a glass of, going over to the bar and getting a glass of wine and thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be here, go over to that same bar, get that glass of wine, and stand there and think about, okay, what is it that I want to share with the first person that comes up to me? And why do I want to share it? You don't have to tell people stuff about yourself that you don't want to talk about. But I think most of us don't realize that. And it's the same thing when you go for that college interview or you go for that internship interview or you go for that job interview. When they ask you that age-old, so predictable question of, well, tell me about yourself. You don't just blurt out stuff. Tell them stuff that you want to talk about. Tell them stuff that you think they're going to care about. Don't tell them everything about you. Control the message. What it all comes down to is realizing that we all have so much to offer other people. And it's, again, it's that conversation at the holiday cocktail party, that awkward conversation at the Thanksgiving or holiday dinner table with that relative you haven't seen in 20 years, that weird conversation you might have with someone on the street. Don't just blurt stuff out. Think before we speak. Share with people what we're comfortable sharing. Because usually when we're going back and forth with someone, if it's an interview, it's a cocktail party conversation, if it's a dinner table conversation, that what you say, those details you reveal are a springboard. And so I always tell people they're a springboard into further parts of that conversation. And if you say stuff that is offensive or you say stuff that you're not comfortable talking about, the chances are the conversation's not going to go so well. But if you think strategically about the stuff that you want to share and the stuff that you're excited to talk about, it is going to make such a difference. And the thing with giving speeches, you're controlling the message. So I always tell my students at Rutgers, where I teach public speaking, they have these assignments where they have to pick an informative topic, or they have to pick a persuasive topic, or they have to pick a special occasion speech where they do a toast. They pick the topic, but you don't just share with us everything about one thing. You pick certain kernels to focus on. So I always call it, pick your three buckets. If you're going to do a speech about your favorite athlete, say your favorite athlete is Michael Jordan, or say your favorite actress is Angelina Jolie, you're not going to tell me everything about Angie's life, or you're not going to tell me everything about MJ's career. You're going to pick the three things that you most care about. And that same thing goes back to that job interview. That same thing goes back to that cocktail party conversation. Share the things you want to share. Talk about the things you want to talk about. And be enthusiastic when you do it. Because that's what makes you, anyone, a great communicator. And, if you wander into a room and your friend is 45 minutes or an hour late, or your friend decides not to show up and you're there solo, don't leave. That's the worst thing you can do. Find someone to talk to. And I always tell people, go to the person that doesn't look like someone you would normally talk to, right? Because when you walk into that room and you get that glass of wine and you stand at that bar and you gaze around the room, we all tend to go to the people that look like us because we judge them based on appearance. Go to the person that looks nothing like you or your best friend and start talking to them. Now, if they're engaged in a conversation with four other people, maybe wait, okay? But if they're there looking around the room nervously, just go up and smile and say, hi, are you here by yourself? And introduce yourself. And it is absolutely incredible where these conversations can lead, right? And I have to admit, I used to hate going to things by myself. I absolutely hated it. It was like my greatest fear, right? And I teach this stuff. So I actually started putting into practice what I teach. And, oh, my God, it really works. And I always tell people, don't be intimidated if it's a woman and she's all dolled up, right?
Right.
Just go over and talk to her. She's probably really nice. And maybe she's just dressed that way because she's insecure, or maybe she's just dressed that way because she figured it's great. It's better to look great than it is to look schlumpy, because if you look great, at least you look great, right? So
You betcha.
it's right, and so it's one of those things where people we all assume that we're not interesting, and we actually all are. A lot of us assume that no one really wants to talk to us, but the reality is they do. And most of us tend to hang out with people or gravitate to people that look like us because it's easier, we think. But if you believe in yourself, realize that you have cool stuff to share, and go to the people that don't look like you, it is absolutely incredible, the connections and the conversations you're going to have and that you're going to make through those dialogues. It really is just amazing. But the most important thing to realize in any of these situations is that you decide what you want to talk about, not the other person. And then you say, they respond, they'll send back their message, and you go back and forth. The basic model, there's actually a model of communication. It has two people. It has a sender and a receiver. And the sender is the person that talks, and the receiver is the person that listens. And then what happens is when that receiver starts talking, they become the sender. And the person who was talking before, they become the receiver. And that's all it is. But if you don't send stuff you want to send, they're not going to receive stuff that you want them to receive, and then the whole thing's not going to work out. And so it's all about control and being proactive and thinking before you talk.
When I was looking through some of the services that you have here, because you do a variety of different preps as it relates to interview, meaning you do interview boot camp versus virtual interview coaching. So I have a question relative to that, because when you're doing a boot camp, it's obviously face-to-face, it's more short-term, versus a virtual interview coaching where obviously you're working with somebody in a virtual reality, so you're not face-to-face. Do you find that there are benefits to both sides of the fence, meaning because some people would say, oh, it's only beneficial if I'm right in front, because sometimes facial features, body features, et cetera, are just more accessible to us, obviously being in person. So talk about the benefits of both, if you would, for a bit, please.
Sure. So here's a stat I'll throw out to you. 93% of communication is nonverbal body language.
Really?
Yeah. So, and 50% of us make a judgment about somebody solely based on appearance. In hiring situations, job interviews, 50% of people decide whether or not there's going to be a follow-along interview within the first 5 minutes of talking to somebody.
Wow.
So So if you think about those stats, the statistics, nonverbal communication is incredibly important. So the beautiful thing about an in-person interview coaching, or a Skype interview coaching, is that we still have that nonverbal element that comes into play. So if I was working with you via Skype or any sort of, as they call it, mediated device, that's done over the internet, and it was face-to-face, I could still say, you know what, you're not looking at me when you're talking. You're going too fast. You're doing weird stuff with your eyes. Your hair isn't right. You're really sure you want to be in that shirt. I can give you all that stuff, as I can do it when we're actually sitting in the same room together. And what's interesting these days is that more and more companies are starting off the first interviews with either a Skype interview or something similar, or as they call it now, like a bot interview, where the whole interview is taped. And it's actually a recording that leads the session. And the companies then actually analyze your nonverbal communication to see how in control you are during that session. It's fascinating. So how in those bot interviews, they look at how quickly do you talk, how do you move around when you're talking, to the bot, we'll call it. Do you come across as nervous? Do you come across as stressed? Do you come across as relaxed? And a lot of this is based upon the nonverbal element. So it's not the words that I'm saying, it's everything else. So it's my word, it's my tone, it's my speed, it's where I'm looking, it's where I move my arms, it's how I'm sitting in the chair, it's what I'm wearing, it's all that stuff. So it's incredibly important that, interview coaching can be done either in person or over Skype or any other mediated way. but it has to be face-to-face. I could never really coach someone. I mean, you can give people ideas, but to get the full gamut of interview coaching, it has to be done where people can see each other going back and forth. And that's what's part of the challenge, and it sort of takes us back to social media, but part of the challenge with texting or Facebook or stuff where there's no, where there's no visual, is so much of that conversation actually gets lost because we misinterpret what people are saying because we can't talk about how they're saying it. It's a huge problem. So for me, when I work with people face-to-face or over Skype for this interview coaching, it doesn't really matter how I do it with them because through both of those experiences, I and they both get the benefit of being able to see each other face-to-face, one-on-one.
Sure. Oh, I gotcha. Definitely. Now, relating to children, I know there's 3 areas that you work on, meaning body language and oral presentation and conversation. Now, when kids are younger, obviously, I think oftentimes not only do they have less control, but in some ways, some people say that they're easier to teach. Would you concur?
They are. They're great. They're amazing.
More willing and more welcoming in terms of this sort of thing?
My God, I had this last year I was teaching this class at a local elementary school, and I was a little boy, 3rd grade. And I said, well, look, today we're doing informative speeches. So he said, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, that means you get to get up in front of the room and talk to me about whatever you want to. You get to inform me about something. And he goes, well, he thought about it for a while. He goes, should I talk to you about my dog, my sister, or the movie I saw over the weekend? And I said, well, what's the most exciting to you? He's like, well, it's definitely not my sister. He goes, I think it's the movie I saw over the weekend. So we sat down, and we came up with 3 things about that movie that he loved. And it was a Minion movie. It was some sort of animated experience, And he talked about the characters, he talked about the story, and he talked about the villain and why those 3 things were so amazing to him. And he got up in front of 12 kids and said that speech with so much passion and so much energy, and not too much. I mean, really, he was so excited to share with the other kids in the room information about the movie that he'd just seen with his mom and dad. And he wasn't afraid, and he didn't do anything weird in terms of rocking back and forth or moving his hands too much. And he looked at me the whole time he was doing it. He was incredible. So to your point, these little kids, they're so excited to have the spotlight. And they're not afraid because they're not adults, that they're absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. And so that's why I say, and these are the same kids that are learning how to ride the bike. If I can get them at that age to come to these classes and their parents buy into the whole idea, it is so incredible how good those kids are. And I will tell you, that mother has contacted me, and she's like, oh, my God, the stuff that he learned in your class has helped him this year, and I know it's going to help him next year. And for me, that's so rewarding because, that's why I do this stuff, is just to try to help, to make us all better communicators. So, yeah, the little kids, they're amazing. I love those presenting for kids classes. We're starting some ones up in January up in this area, and I'm so excited to do them because the kids just are so excited to be there, and they just want to share. And if you could bottle that energy and sell it, oh, my God, it'd be incredible. So it's great stuff.
Oh, no kidding. And just so you folks know, of course, obviously I know you do grades 3 to 5, and then you have a section for tweens, of course, where you're talking about public and persuasive speaking, and obviously the adults we were talking about there. So now my question to you is, because we talk a lot about nowadays interviewing for positions, I mean, the game has just changed so much. I mean, in terms of cover letters and resumes electronically and all the various ways to do this. So if you could offer one thing, if there's an adult standing in front of you and they're going to whatever interview, whether it be big, small, or otherwise, what's one little nugget or bit of information that they have to walk in with to be even remotely successful? You know how we always have those little pointers or whatever? What's one thing that you ensure to tell your clients that's essential?
You have to know who you are, and you have to be able to it sounds really goofy. There's this whole concept of self-identity, right, which is realizing who we are. And I talked about it a little bit before, like what we're good at, what we're great at, and what we're not so great at. But you've got to be able to explain to a person that's interviewing you have to be able to explain to an interviewer who you are, what makes you unique, and how you're the right person for that position compared to everybody else. So when you're in an interview, and that's why it's so incredibly important that you prep for each interview very, very, very specifically, you have to make that interviewer see you in that position by the end of that interview, so that through the things that you say about yourself, your skills, your strengths, your weaknesses, your kind of gray area, if you want to call it that, talk about it relative to that job and how your strengths are going to help you and how your assets are going to make you a great team player, a great leader, a great part of that company's culture. You need to make yourself stand out from the crowd. You can't leave it to that interviewer to figure it out for you. That's your goal with any interview, should be offered the job. So you need to put together your toolkit of your skills and your assets for making them see you as a candidate for that position, bar none. Because if we leave it up to the interviewer, they're not going to get it. They're going to talk to somebody else. And maybe that's that next person that's going to be able to position themselves as the ideal candidate. It's all about differentiation these days, because everyone knows, the standard question of, well, if you could be any color in the crayon box, what would you be and why? If you could be any superhero, who would you be and why? What's the one superpower you would like? Tell me your 5 greatest strengths. Tell me your 5 weaknesses. And when it comes to weaknesses, everyone says, I'm too much of a perfectionist. I mean, that's a standard canned answer we've all been told since we were interviewing for jobs when we were 16. And everyone knows these are the canned answers. So what companies are looking for now are candidates that have a great sense of who they are as individuals and how they will bring their assets into whatever corporate culture it is. So it's all about knowing who you are, defining who you are, and then selling that to the company or selling that to the college that you're talking to. Because the thing about interviewing is that whether it's for a summer internship as a high school student, whether it's for a college or university entry, or whether it's for a job interview, it's all, for the most part, the same experience. You're sitting down, in most cases still, with one person or a group of people in an interview session where you're saying things, they're asking you questions, and you're going back and forth. So the way that you're going to make yourself memorable out of the 10 people, out of the 10 people that the interviewer is going to talk to in one day, is by clearly defining yourself as the right person for that job. And that's not easy, because it's every job is different, every position is different, and every company's culture is different. So, someone will say, well, I have a great sense of, what I'm awesome at. I mean, I know for myself, I'm great at writing. I'm great at connecting people. I'm really good at thinking at my feet, both strategically and pragmatically. But I know for myself, I'm really not very good at science. In fact, I'm kind of a disaster when it comes to science. I'm good at math, and I did take calculus, but I'm not a rocket scientist. So, it would be hard for me to interview in a company if it was super, super, super scientific, because that's probably stuff that I would have to be able to figure out. And I would do it in time, but there's probably someone that's better for that position. But you know what? If I wound up in a job interview, saying working for a science company, and if they were interviewing me for a corporate PR position, I would tell them, look, I'm a fantastic writer. I'm a great connector. I'm awesome in working with reporters. But you know what? My top subject was not science, but I'm really good at asking questions. So if you want somebody in here who has a complete scientific mind, I'm not the right person for you. But if you want somebody in here who's a great communicator, who's humble, who's okay asking questions, and who will get those ideas that the research people tell me and put them on paper in a great way, then I'm your person. And so I think, we're all not awesome at everything. And so as an interview candidate, if you can go in and know who you are and present yourself in an honest light and sell yourself as the right person for that job to that interviewer, you're going to be in a great position.
You bet. And look at that. My God, it's been almost an hour. Our time is almost up. Oh, my God. See, these things go so fast. It's insane. Absolutely. So my question to you is this. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. There's two different things here. First of all, I'm going to read off the ways to find you. Please correct me if I've missed anything.
Okay.
The website, of course, folks, to organize anything relative to her services. PresentingPerfection.com. She has a
Correct.
Facebook page, Groupon, Google, YouTube, LinkedIn, and her Twitter handle is @ and it's Catherine with a K, Kathryn, Sachs, Sachs. Any other place to find you?
You can definitely find me on my website, which is presentingperfection.com.
Right.
And
you bet.
Send me an email. I'll get back to you. Send me a tweet. I promise I'll get back to you. We're on social media. We also actually have a phone number. So the phone number is listed on the website. I actually do answer it, especially if I don't know the number. Hopefully, it's awesome if it's someone calling that I don't know for that part of my life. So call me. And if you're in the New York area or the New Jersey area or the Connecticut area or the Pennsylvania area, or even if you're in California, I will get on the phone with you or get on Skype with you and talk to you, because I am a big believer, as we started saying in the beginning, about face-to-face conversation and doing it the old school way, because I think we all learn more about each other in a good way that way.
You betcha, without a doubt, definitely. And now you have my contact information, so get a hold of me so we can talk about PR and all that wonderful good stuff. Know that you can come back on my show anytime you want. You don't necessarily have to promote anything besides your love of yourself. I think it would be awesome, definitely. And certainly some of the best friends that I have and the people that I work with on an ongoing basis come on my show. So hopefully I've done you justice in the amount of time we had. If not, just keep coming back until I do that. That I always tell people. But usually most people are happy. So I'm like, just keep coming back until we get it right. But hopefully,
no, I appreciate it, and I appreciate it. And it's always fun to talk about what you do, especially when you love it.
I know,
but
right?
I have to say that starting this whole thing a couple of years ago was kind of, I'm sure as when you started your radio show, it's kind of intimidating, and
it is.
because you're like, I have an idea, and I don't know how many people are going to like my idea, and do I really like my idea?
Right.
But then you start thinking about your idea, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do this. Then it just kind of takes a life out of its own. And so I just want to get out there to all your listeners, like, if you guys have an idea, go for it. Don't be afraid of it, because the only person that's preventing you from doing something is yourself. And I am a huge, I'm a huge lover of the arts and of theater, and I go to stuff all the time, and what I always love to do is go and hear the artists talk back, where the artists talk about, how they got to be actors or directors or producers. And, whether it's been a conversation with Sting or a conversation with Harvey Feuerstein or a conversation with, Candice Bergen or Gwyneth Paltrow or Cameron Diaz, all these people I've been actually, like Anderson Cooper, all these people I've actually been able to meet live and talk one-on-one with, Carson Kressley, is that they all share the same thing. They all say the only person that's ever prevented them from doing something is themselves. And these are people that we all think have it come so easy to them, and it's not. And, Sting had this great show on Broadway a couple of years ago called The Last Ship, which I will admit I actually saw 3 times because I love him and I love his music. And it took him 8.5 years to get it into full form. And he said it took him 8.5 years because he kept getting in the way of himself. And if you talk to Harvey Feuerstein and talk to him about Kinky Boots, which is a great show that he did in Hairspray,
right,
it's the same thing. And you hear this time and time again. So if you have an idea, pursue it. Don't assume that somebody else has it, because they probably don't. There actually are still a lot of original ideas, and most of them haven't been thought of yet. So, find a friend if you want someone to do it with, or just do it yourself and just try to create it. And if you have to volunteer to make it work, if you have to offer free courses to make it work, do it, because you never know where it's going to lead to. And you never know who you're going to meet in the process of doing it. And all I can tell you is, I'm sure you feel the same way, like, this wonderful experience of life that we all have is such an adventure. And the way that you live the adventure is to get outside of that comfort zone, and is to talk to people that don't look like you. It's to interview for jobs that you never thought you'd be qualified for. It's to go hang gliding. Like, I went hang gliding over the summer when I was in New Zealand. It was amazing. It's to do the stuff that scares you, because if you do stuff that scares you, you grow as a person. And starting my own business was scary. But now it's okay. And I've actually recently launched another company because I was like, oh, my gosh, I have this other idea. I'm going to do this one too. And because I saw, like, doing the first one was so much fun, and working with people on public speaking and communicating has been so incredible that, you know, if you have an idea, go for it. Don't worry about failing, because if you love it and if you believe in it, you're not going to fail. So I just wanted to get that out there, because I know there are so many people that listen that have ideas, and they're like, oh, no, that's a dumb idea. Somebody else has it, but someone else doesn't have it. So go for it. Yeah, just do it, you know, as they say.
All right, young ladies, you have yourself a great evening and a great weekend. I'll be talking to you soon. Reach out. We can get together. I would love that.
I'd love that. Thank you. Happy holidays to everybody.
All right, Catherine, you too, dear. Bye-bye.
Great.
All right, folks, that's it. 10 seconds left. You guys, thank you so much for listening. Thank you again to Ethel. Have yourselves a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers. Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.
When we go out to eat, we never agree on where to go.
I want burgers. Pizza.
Tacos it is.
The one thing we do agree on is we all want unlimited high-speed data. That's why we switched to Metro PCS.
Stop by Metro PCS with the whole family and get 4 lines with unlimited LTE data for just $100, period. Metro PCS. Wireless. Figured out.
Coverage not available in some areas. Offers require port of number not currently active on T-Mobile network. During congestion, the fraction of customers using more than 35 gigs per month may notice reduced speeds. Video streams at up to 40p. No tethering. See store for details and terms and conditions.